Hello and welcome to Rotted Review of the Day, and today I'm taking a look at the 2008 movie The Children. Now, as far as a Christmas horror movie goes, the Christmas part of this was more the background. It was the reason the characters got together and the setting of the time. But there wasn't a whole lot of sugar plums dancing in this one. I've been trying to find Christmas horror movies for this advent calendar thing, and some of them have been very Christmassy. You know, you've had Santa stabbing people in the eye sockets with candy canes, and some of them it was more like the Die Hard, where Christmas is just kind of the background. But I still consider Die Hard to be a Christmas movie. I still consider this to be a Christmas movie. Moving on, though, what I found about The Children was that this was actually a surprisingly adept movie for having a fairly simple storyline. It kind of foregoes a lot of scares and replaces them with somewhat disturbing imagery, and certainly somewhat disturbing situations. And I thought that for the most part, it worked really well. I was surprised by this one. I liked it. But to get into more details, let's get into the categories. As always, 4 different categories, each one worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. And the plot, I gave a 16 out of 25. This was good. It wasn't amazing, but it was on the high side of average. It was good. Ultimately, what this followed was 2 families getting together for Christmas. You had a mother and father in each one and a passel of kids in each one, and they meet up at one of their homes in the remote countryside, and something starts happening. The kids feel a little bit off. Honestly, for me, as somebody that has been in a parental role, one of the most anxiety-inducing phrases I can hear is, Daddy, my tummy hurts. That kind of juvenile thing there. It just ramps it up because you just know that any time between the next 1 second and the next 10 minutes, it's a potential time bomb, and whatever happens, they're probably not going to have the wherewithal to make it in the toilet. So there was a lot of that phrase in this movie, but even so, there wasn't a whole lot of the vomit that my anxiety tendrils pricked up at. But regardless, the kids start not feeling well in one way or another, and it kind of happens sporadically. You know, like some kid, might be here and they might feel a little better, and then but then they start acting a little bit more off than just sick, and ultimately they just start turning on the parents, start becoming a bit of a mindless killer. And the way that this was executed had a lot of things seeming to be accidents, and you had the one character who was played by Hannah Toynton of Casey, who was a teenager. So she wasn't a child. She also wasn't a full-fledged adult yet. She wasn't feeling these effects, but she was witnessing some of this happen. And while the adults were trying to reconcile these horrific accidents that were happening, they also weren't believing Casey. So you had a little bit of that element going there. I honestly wish that they had slid that scale down just a bit. I think this movie took a little bit too long for that switch to flip for the adults, for them to recognize that something beyond accidents were going on and that maybe we should listen to Casey. I get having it as a plot point. I think they just milked it too much. But 16 out of 25 for the plot, and I'm happy giving it that high of a score. Intent, 16 out of 25 also. Any scares or jump scares that they tried for, which they did, but it was sparing. I honestly just don't think they worked that well. Maybe that was an issue with the editing, but the jump scares seemed poorly timed for actually delivering the jump. But the disturbing imagery landed really well. The idea of having these kids do this stuff, and this movie did not hold back on the gruesomeness or the gore. So that I thought worked really, really well. It also actually laid out some pretty interesting characters and some pretty interesting situations. I thought that from a storyteller's point of view, from the receiving end of a storyteller's story, I thought this worked really, really well, and I was entertained by it. I was captivated by it. I liked it. The acting I gave a 19 out of 25. I thought this was really well done overall. I think everybody performed fairly well, especially Hannah Toynton as Casey. She had this kind of remarkable survivors thing going towards the end, and a bit of a cheeky Lolita thing going on towards the beginning, but ultimately whatever she was doing, she played very well. But the real standout performances, I think, were from all of the children, and that was something that really surprised me. They really nailed their performances on this one, whether they were playing the truly innocent child performances of, just that vulnerable, I don't feel well kind of thing, or I don't want to be here, this is a stranger's house on Christmas. You may know each other, parents, but I don't know these other kids, and I'm not comfortable being here. They sold that pretty well. And then when it came time and the switch did flip, and they started acting with with a kind of callous, blank-eyed, murderous intent, they played that very well too, which I think was part of the disturbing imagery, and why it was sold so well was the simple malevolence that was behind the children's eyes, and the acting performances that really sold that. So great job overall there. The technical, I gave an 18 out of 25. Very good practical and makeup and blood effects in this one. Like I said, this did not hold back on the gore or the gruesomeness. It really delivered, and I thought delivered it fairly believably and fairly well. Nothing seemed out of the place or cheesy or ham-fisted at all. I thought this was very adept. So yeah, happily 18 out of 25 points. Gives us a total of 69 out of 100. This was not a mind-blowing movie in any sense, but it was quite good, and it was worth a watch. I wouldn't recommend clearing your calendar to do so, but if you happen across it, it gets my seal of approval. I think you'll like it. I know I did. That should about do it for The Children, 2008. Thank you for joining me here today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Remember, if you like these videos, I welcome you to click like and subscribe. And remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.